Long story. She's had kind of a drug criminality. She thinks you're LDS?
Yes.
She thinks she's married to Moroni in the past.
You think she's what?
Married to Moroni, top of the temple.
Angel, LDS.
Chad, where are Lori's kids? What happened to Tammy, Chad? Can you tell us what happened to Tammy? Why have you guys been in Hawaii for so long?
On September 9th, 2019, at 11:53 in the morning, a man named Chad Daybell sent a text to his wife. He told her he'd had an interesting morning. He said he'd spotted a raccoon along the fence, hurried to get his gun, and shot it. He said it was now buried in their pet cemetery. There was no raccoon. That morning, between 9:21 and 10:57, another man's cell phone had pinged repeatedly at the same property, near the barn, near the fire pit, near the place where animals were buried. That man was Alex Cox. He was Lori Vallow's brother. And the day before, September 8th, was the last time anyone saw Lori's 16-year-old daughter, Tylee Ryan, alive. What was buried in that pet cemetery was not a raccoon. This is the case of Lori Vallow, and this is the open file. Lori Noreen Cox was born on June 26, 1973, in Loma Linda, California. She grew up in a Mormon household. Her parents were tax protesters, sovereign citizens who spent 2 decades in conflict with the IRS. It was a childhood that taught her early that the rules of the world did not necessarily apply to her family. She married for the first time at 19. It lasted less than 2 years. She married again, had a son, Colby, in 1996, and divorced again before he was 2. She worked as a hairdresser. In 2001, she married Joseph Ryan, and they had a daughter, Tylee, in 2002. That marriage ended in 2005 amid a custody battle in which Lori accused Ryan of sexually abusing both children. Ryan eventually lost equal custody. He was found dead in his apartment in 2018. Arteriosclerotic cardiovascular disease. After Lori's arrest, a recording surfaced in which she mentioned wanting to kill Ryan like Nephi killed, a reference to a Book of Mormon figure who killed to fulfill a divine command. Police reviewed Ryan's death. They found nothing to suggest foul play. In 2006, she married Charles Vallow. They lived in Arizona. In 2013, they adopted Charles's grandnephew, a boy named Joshua Jackson Vallow, J.J. He was the son of Charles's niece, whose substance abuse had left the child born with drugs in his system. J.J. spent his first year being raised by Charles's sister, Kay Woodcock, and her husband Larry, before Charles and Lori adopted him. J.J. was later diagnosed with autism. For a time, this was a family. Lori was, by outward measure, a woman who moved through life with ease, sociable, attractive, confident.
Hi, how you doing, Lori? From Austin, Texas.
That's right.
Hairstylist in Austin, hey?
That's right, the best.
How's the hair in Austin?
It's good.
Good.
Austin's a happening place.
Probably thanks to you.
Pretty much.
She appeared on Wheel of Fortune in 2004. She competed in the Mrs. Texas beauty pageant. She was the kind of person others wanted to be around. What no one could see yet was what was building behind the surface. Chad Guy Daybell was born on August 11, 1968, in Provo, Utah. He grew up Mormon. He studied journalism at Brigham Young University. He worked as a copy editor for the Ogden Standard-Examiner, and for a time, he worked as a Chad married Tamara Douglas, Tammy, in 1990. They had 5 children. In 2004, they founded a printing press. Chad began writing novels, apocalyptic fiction about the end times, earthquakes, war, and the destruction of the Americas. He also wrote a memoir called Living on the Edge of Heaven, in which he claimed to have had 2 near-death experiences that allowed him to receive visions from beyond the veil. He told his readers that his books were not fiction. He told them they depicted coming events.
As you know, I've had a couple near-death experiences. It seems like I've been waiting for 20 years for something to happen. I write all these novels and people are like, when's it gonna start? Hurricane Irma is on its way to Florida. The fires in California and Montana. And it just feels like times are starting to begin.
In 2015, Chad told his wife that a voice had told him to move to Rexburg, Idaho. He said he'd had a vision that Utah would be devastated by an earthquake. The family relocated. Chad became a popular speaker in radical Mormon circles, a man who could see beyond death, who could peer past the veil, who knew what was coming. He was not a prophet. He was a man who had found an audience for his fantasies, and that audience was willing to pay. Around 2015, Laurie began reading Chad's Standing in Holy Places series. Over the next few years, she grew increasingly invested in radical religious beliefs, reading about near-death experiences, listening to podcasts by excommunicated Mormons. In October 2018, at a Preparing a People conference in Utah, she met Chad Daybell for the first time. Friends who were there said Laurie behaved in a very flirtatious manner with him. Chad told Laurie they had been married in multiple previous lifetimes. They began communicating privately. When Laurie's husband Charles went on a business trip, she held a small overnight gathering at her home. Chad was among the attendees. He captivated the group and Laurie with his revelations from beyond the veil. Within weeks, they were lovers. On December 5th, 2018, Chad and Laurie appeared together on a podcast called Time to Warrior Up.
So we're here with Chad Daybell, and he is on our Feel the Fire podcast today.
We want to talk to Chad about his personal experiences with the Savior. Ray's had many experiences because of his near-death experiences.
I thought that much of the world was in chaos and still in war and trial, but I was shown that Jesus will come.
They appeared in several more episodes. A small religious group formed around Chad and his teachings. They called themselves the Church of the Firstborn. Chad was the leader. Laurie was, increasingly, his most devoted follower. The word cult would come later. But the architecture was already in place. What Chad and Laurie believed was not mainstream Mormonism. It was not recognized by any established church. It was a private theology, assembled from fragments, and it had rules. The first rule was reincarnation, or, as Chad called it, multiple probations. He claimed to have lived 31 previous lives on different planets. Laurie had lived 21, 5 of which overlapped with his. They told their followers they had been sealed together in past lives and were not permitted to divorce their current spouses. The second rule was classification. Chad and Laurie rated every person on a scale from light to dark. Jesus Christ was the highest light. Satan was the darkest dark. Everyone else fell somewhere in between. They kept scores. They updated them. They discussed them like analysts reviewing stocks. The third rule was the most dangerous. A person who had become dark, whose original spirit had left their body and been replaced by a dark spirit, was called a zombie. And Chad taught that the only way to release a zombie's original spirit was through the death of the physical body. Death was not murder. Death was liberation. Laurie told her friend Melanie Gibb that her husband Charles was a demon. She told her that Tylee had become a zombie when she was 12 or 13. Approximately the same time Tylee had become difficult, she told her that J.J. had become a zombie too, pointing to behaviors like sitting still and watching TV, claiming J.J. said he loved Satan, and citing an increased vocabulary as evidence. Melanie Gibb observed J.J.'s behavior. It was the same as it had always been. But Laurie believed what Chad had taught her, and Chad told her it was their mission to rid the world of zombies. The scoring system, the classification, the mission. This was not madness in the conventional sense. This was a system, deliberate, internal, and lethal. On January 31st, 2019, Charles Vallow went to the Gilbert, Arizona police. He was recorded on body camera footage. He told officers his wife had become unhinged. He said she believed she was a god, preparing for the end of days. He said she had told him she would murder him if she had to. He was afraid.
She thinks she's a resurrected being and a god. She said, "You're not Charles. I don't know who you are, what you did with Charles, but I can murder you now with my power."
In February 2019, Charles filed for divorce. In the court documents, he expressed fear for his own safety and the children's. On July 11th, 2019, Charles went to Laurie's home in Chandler, Arizona, to drop off J.J. What happened inside that house is known only through the account of the person who killed him. Alex Cox told police that Charles struck him with a baseball bat and that he shot Charles in self-defense. Laurie and Tylee, who were in the home, corroborated the story. Chandler police initially accepted the self-defense claim. No charges were filed. Charles Vallow was buried, and the man who shot him walked free. Later investigation would reveal that Charles was likely on the floor when he was shot, that the shooting was execution style, not defensive. Laurie and Tylee's statements were inconsistent with the physical evidence, but that investigation would not come for months, and by then, 2 more people would be gone. Charles Vallow was 62. He had spent the last months of his life trying to warn anyone who would listen that his wife was dangerous. He was not wrong. After Charles's death, Laurie relocated. In September 2019, she moved herself, J.J., Tylee, and Alex Cox to Rexburg, Idaho, the same small town where Chad Daybell lived with his wife Tammy. On September 8th, 2019, Laurie took her children and her brother to Yellowstone National Park. Photos from that trip, released later by the FBI, show Tylee smiling at the camera, J.J. posing next to his uncle. An ordinary family outing. It is the last time Tylee Ryan was photographed alive. On September 9th, the morning after the Yellowstone trip, Alex Cox's cell phone GPS placed him at Chad Daybell's property from approximately 9:21 a.m. to 10:57 a.m. He was there for roughly 2 hours. At 10:47 a.m., his phone showed movement toward the nearby city of St. Anthony. By 11:52, he was back at the Daybell property. By 12:02 p.m., he was at a Del Taco in Rexburg. At 11:53 that morning, 14 minutes after Cox's GPS showed him leaving the property, Chad Daybell texted his wife, "I spotted a big raccoon along the fence. I hurried and got my gun, and he was still walking along. I got close enough that one shot did the trick. He is now in our pet cemetery." He told Tammy he was going to shower and then write at BYU. At 2:48 p.m., he texted, "I'm back home now." No raccoon was ever found in the pet cemetery. What was found there 9 months later were the dismembered and burned remains of a 16-year-old girl, buried among the graves of pets near a fire pit that neighbors said was hardly ever used until the last few months. A Boise State University anthropologist identified charred tissue, charred bones, and uncharred bones, all human, mixed into the earth below bricks and dirt. Tylee Ryan's cause of death could not be determined. Her body had been destroyed too thoroughly. She was 16. She had been, by every account, a vibrant teenager, funny, loyal, a loving sister to J.J., despite the frustrations of babysitting. She had responded to her mother calling her a zombie with the words, "Not me, Mom." She was not a zombie. She was a child. And her mother buried her under a lie about a raccoon. The last time J.J. Vallow was seen alive was the night of September 22nd, 2019. Melanie Gibb and her boyfriend David Warwick were staying at Laurie's apartment in Rexburg. It was late. J.J. was acting up. Alex Cox took J.J. to his own apartment in the same complex. Warwick remembered the moment vividly. When Cox returned, he was carrying J.J. over his shoulder. The boy's head rested against his uncle. He appeared to be asleep, Warwick said. It seemed tender. The next morning, when Warwick asked where J.J. was, Laurie told him the boy had been acting like a zombie, climbing on the kitchen cabinets, knocking a picture of Jesus off the refrigerator. She said Alex had come and taken him away. On September 23rd, Cox's phone placed him at Chad Daybell's property for 17 minutes, from 9:55 to 10:12 a.m. This time, near the pond. When investigators excavated that area on June 9, 2020, they found Jay buried in a shallow grave. His body was wrapped tightly in black plastic and secured with grey duct tape. Flat rocks had been placed over the sod above him, then flat paneling, then dirt. Ada County Chief Forensic Pathologist Dr. Garth Warren performed the autopsy. It took 4 hours. JJ's cause of death was asphyxiation, suffocation. He was 7 years old. He had autism. He had been adopted into a family that promised him safety. He was buried in a backyard, wrapped in garbage bags, under rocks and dirt, while the man who put him there texted his wife about going to shower and write. Tammy Daybell was 49. She was a school librarian. She ran half marathons. She had 5 children. She had been married to Chad for 29 years. On October 9th, 2019, 10 days before she died, Tammy called the Rexburg police to report that someone had shot at her with a paintball gun while she was standing in her driveway. No suspect was identified. She was not seriously injured, but she told a friend she felt uneasy. On October 19, 2019, Tammy died in her bed. Chad called 911. The couple's son, Garth, said he and his father made the call together. The Daybell children declined an autopsy at the time. The coroner told them the death appeared to be natural causes. They believed it because they said their mother had been in poor health. She was buried. 2 weeks later, on November 5th, 2019, Chad Daybell married Laurie Vallow on a beach in Hawaii. In December 2019, the Fremont County Sheriff's Office grew suspicious. They exhumed Tammy's body. An autopsy was performed. The cause of death was changed from natural causes to homicide by asphyxiation, suffocation. Someone had held Tammy Daybell down and taken her breath. And then her husband married the woman who believed Tammy was a zombie, and they went to Hawaii. and they didn't tell anyone that 2 children were missing.
Lori, Nate Eaton with East Idaho News. Can you tell me where your kids are? Where are your kids?
No comment.
No comment? They've been missing for 4 months. You have nothing to say? You're over here in Hawaii? Where are your children? Yeah, why don't you just give us a comment? Just tell us where they are. Chad, where are Lori's kids? What happened to Tammy, Chad? Can you tell us what happened to Tammy? Why have you guys been in Hawaii for so long? Listen, just tell people what's happening. There's people around the country praying for your children, praying for you guys. Why don't you give us answers?
That's great.
That's great. That's great that they're praying for you, praying for your kids. What? You have nothing to say? Did you do something to your children? Are your children still alive? That's a simple question. I've got 3 kids of my own. I can tell you every minute where my kids are at. Where are your children? What do you guys plan to do now? Are you have 5 days to get your children in front of a judge in Rexburg, then what? Are you guys innocent of any crimes? Have you committed any crimes? Chad, you guys have a lot to say on your podcast. You don't have anything to say now? Lori? Do you believe that you were instructed by God or others to do something for your children? If you could give a message to them, what would you say? Listen, if you just talk to us, we'll leave you alone.
The family's worried. Tammy's family's very worried.
Tammy's family's very worried. Lori, your mother, Kay, came out. Kay and Larry, they're offering a $20,000 reward for your children. And you're over here on the beach? This is your chance to tell your story. Nothing you want to say? One last chance right here? Anything you want to say to the people in Idaho? Lori, you have a lot of cash there in your baggie. Were you guys planning to leave Hawaii? Were you planning to take off?
In late November 2019, Rexburg police went to Lori's apartment asking about J.J. She told them he was safe in Arizona with her friend Melanie Gibb. She was lying. Gibb later told police that J.J. had never been with her and that Lori had asked her to lie to investigators. When police returned with more questions, Lori and Chad were gone. They had left Idaho. They were found in Hawaii in January 2020. Lori was arrested on February 20th for desertion and non-support of her children. She did not tell police where they were. Neither did Chad. They were married on a beach while 2 children lay in a backyard, one dismembered and burned, one wrapped in plastic and taped shut, and neither of them said a word. On June 9th, 2020, the FBI, Rexburg Police, and Fremont County Sheriff's Office executed a search warrant on Chad Daybell's property. They excavated 2 areas. They found J.J. first, under the tree by the pond. Then they found Tylee in the pet cemetery near the fire pit. Chad Daybell got into an SUV and drove away from the property as the search was underway. He was arrested about a mile from his home. He has never said where Tylee's and J.J.'s remains were or who put them there. Lori Vallow Daybell's trial in Idaho began in April 2023. The defense argued that she was mentally unfit, that her religious beliefs, however extreme, were sincerely held. The prosecution argued that the beliefs were a justification, not a cause. That Lori and Chad killed to eliminate obstacles to their affair, to collect life insurance, and to continue receiving the children's Social Security survivor benefits. The jury deliberated for less than 7 hours. On May 12, 2023, they found Lori Vallow Daybell guilty on all counts: first-degree murder of J.J. Vallow and Tylee Ryan, and conspiracy to murder Tammy Daybell. On July 31, 2023, she was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. In May 2024, Chad Daybell was tried separately. The jury found him guilty on all counts: first-degree murder of Tylee, J.J, and Tammy, plus conspiracy and grand theft. On June 1st, 2024, he was sentenced to death. After Idaho, Lori was extradited to Arizona. In April 2025, she was convicted of conspiracy to murder Charles Vallow. In June 2025, she was convicted of conspiracy to murder Brandon Boudreaux, her niece's estranged husband, who survived being shot at through his car window in October 2019. On July 25th, 2025, she received 2 additional life sentences. At her Arizona sentencing, her surviving son, Colby Ryan, addressed the court. He spoke about growing up with a mother who was, for a time, warm and present, and then was not. He spoke about Tylee and J.J. He spoke about what it means to be the only one left. Lori Vallow Daybell smiled throughout her trials. She smiled when the verdicts were read. She smiled at her sentencings. She has never confessed. She has never expressed remorse. Kay Woodcock raised J.J. for the first year of his life. She held him in the neonatal intensive care unit when he was born with drugs in his system. She and her husband Larry fought to keep him in the family. They believed when Charles and Lori adopted him that he would be safe. After Charles died and J.J. disappeared, Kay Woodcock called police. She called them every day. She would not stop calling until someone listened. She is the reason this case was investigated at all. J.J. Vallow was 7. He had autism. He was adopted into a family that promised to love him. He was suffocated, wrapped in plastic, taped shut, and buried under rocks in a stranger's backyard. Tylee Ryan was 16. She told her mother she was not a zombie. She was dismembered and burned and buried among the graves of pets, and her cause of death will never be known because her body was too thoroughly destroyed. Tammy Daybell was 49. She ran half marathons. She was a school librarian. She was asphyxiated in her own bed and buried without an autopsy. And her husband married another woman on a beach in Hawaii 2 weeks later. Charles Vallow was 62. He went to the police and told them his wife would kill him. He was shot dead on the floor of her home, and the man who shot him said it was self-defense. And for months, no one contradicted him. And Alex Cox, the brother who was present at every death, whose phone placed him at every burial site, died in December 2019, before he could be charged with anything. Natural causes, the autopsy said. The only person who could have testified to every act is gone. 5 deaths, 1 survivor. A mother who killed her children and smiled. Sometimes, in cases like this, there is no resolution that feels like justice. There is only the weight of what was done. To children who trusted the person who killed them. To a woman who was murdered in her sleep. To a man who begged for help and received none. And to a family that will carry the absence for the rest of their lives. The silence around this case is not the silence of mystery. It is the silence of people who chose not to speak, when speaking might have saved lives. And that silence is still loud.